This is Martin Luther King on steroids, okay? Now, I told that to Mark. I said, I think you're better than Martin Luther King. I think you are Martin Luther King times 2. And he looked at me, and I wasn't sure, was he angry because that's a terrible thing to say, or was he complimented? I have never figured it out.
Here is the serving Republican lieutenant governor of North Carolina on that movie, on Black Panther. He says it is, quote, created by an agnostic Jew and put to film by a satanic Marxist. He calls it, quote, this trash that was only created to pull the shekels out of your Schwarze pockets. Ladies and gentlemen, the Republican lieutenant governor of North Carolina. Tomorrow on Super Tuesday, he's actually going to be running in the North Carolina primary to try to become his party's nominee for governor of the great state of North Carolina. Here he is calling survivors of school gun massacres, quote, media prostitutes, as in prostitutes, but prostitutes. He calls them spoiled little bastards who need to shut up. Again, this is for kids who lived through a school shooting that killed 17 of their classmates. They need to shut up. He calls public school teachers, quote, wicked people. And not for nothing, he says this about the Holocaust. He says, quote, Hitler disarming millions of Jews and then marching them off to concentration camps is a bunch of hogwash. He is the Republican Party's leading candidate to be their party's nominee for governor of the state of North Carolina. He will be on the ballot tomorrow in that state. He's already lieutenant governor in North Carolina. On Friday in Florida, Republicans in that state legislature passed yet another new law to restrict any teaching about racism in the United States. This happened just this past Friday, just a couple days ago on Friday, in Florida. And in the debate over this new Florida bill, one Republican Florida state representative said that while this bill overall will restrict teaching about racism and things like slavery in Florida, he said there is one specific thing that he wanted to make sure is included in public education in Florida from here on out. He said while he supports this bill, he does want to make sure everybody's aware that slaves were, quote, paid for their work. And so he wants to make sure that's taught in schools. And then he voted for the bill. This, of course, comes in Florida after the state's Republican governor tried to claim during his presidential campaign that there were actually a lot of underappreciated benefits of slavery for the people who were enslaved. The chair of the Florida Democratic Party put out a statement in response, clearly just mystified, saying, quote, Florida Republicans are hell-bent on teaching our children that slavery wasn't bad. And it is hard to argue. I know it's insane, but it keeps happening. Pop over to Oklahoma. In Oklahoma, Republicans control the state government there too, and like just about everywhere, that's true. Oklahoma Republicans have now banned abortion in almost every circumstance, but that apparently is not enough for them. Oklahoma Republicans are now moving a new bill that would create a state registry of every woman who does still find a way to get an abortion. I wonder what Oklahoma Republicans will want to do with a state database of women who have undergone abortions. I'm sure they want it for only the most respectful and responsible reasons. Other lawmakers are warning that the way the Oklahoma bill is written, it looks like it's also, in addition to creating a registry of women who have had abortions, it also seems intended to ban contraception, including forms of contraception like the IUD. That's what Oklahoma Republicans are up to. In Alabama, you may remember the 9 Republican justices on the Alabama Supreme Court issued a unanimous ruling that effectively outlawed fertility treatment in that state. After Alabama's Supreme Court Republicans did that, Democrats in Congress in Washington introduced federal legislation to protect fertility treatment and protect IVF. That legislation was blocked by Republican U.S. Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith. There are 219 Republicans in Congress right now. In the House, there's 219. Of that 219 number of Republicans, 125 of them are co-sponsors of legislation that would ban IVF. and arguably many popular forms of contraception as well. 125 House Republicans, more than half the Republicans in the House, co-sponsored that, including the Republican Speaker of the House. 125 of them. 195 of them voted against contraception, full stop. The Right to Contraception Act was introduced by Democrats after the Republican appointees on the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade. The right to contraception. Only 8 Republicans in Congress voted for that. 195 voted against. And let's just stick with healthcare just for a second. Florida again. Florida, they are now contending with a super worrying outbreak of measles. Measles, like it's the 1800s or something. One of the most transmissible pathogens on Earth. And one we don't typically have to worry about anymore in this country because for 60 freaking years, we've had a totally effective vaccine against measles. Except in Florida, Republicans picked a very special state surgeon general who's now telling Florida parents, who am I to suggest that perhaps kids should be vaccinated against measles?
Yesterday, the Florida Department of Health released a letter from Surgeon General Dr. Joseph Ladapo emphasizing how contagious measles is, but did not urge parents to vaccinate their children.
He does not, which is an interesting letter from a Surgeon General.
Beyond who am I to say your kids should be vaccinated, the hand Republican-picked Florida Surgeon General wouldn't even say that kids with measles should stay home from school, while they're infectious and symptomatic with one of the most transmissible, potentially fatal pathogens known to mankind. Measles in Florida. Not to be outdone, now the Republican Party's leading presidential candidate is saying on the stump that he will withhold all funding, not a penny, from any school anywhere in America if kids have to be vaccinated to come to school. Kids have to be vaccinated all over the country, everywhere, against measles and mumps and polio. I mean, it's been true for decades. It's been true for generations. But just in case you've been missing, iron lungs, the Republican Party is raring to go this election year with a new measles and polio for all the kids plan. And what swing state busy mom and dad isn't going to want to get the whole family to lick that doorknob and vote GOP this November with that kind of platform on offer to the American people? Can we get a smallpox over here? How about some tetanus for the little ones? Whooping cough like it's going out of style. I do want to give the Missouri Republican Party a little bit of a shout out, though. A little salute, a little stiff-armed salute, perhaps. This gentleman, not the one in the Klan robe with a sheet over his head, but the guy next to him. And you can see him also in this photo. He is not the guy with the full Klan neo-Nazi uniform on with the tie on the right. No, he's the guy next to him. You can see if you put the images next to each other, he's got the same little thing on in both images, the glasses around his neck on those like croquis style things. Yeah, so that guy, the one who, with the burning cross behind him, is making the Roman salute with the Klansmen, and then in the other photo with the neo-Nazi uniform guy in front of the neo-Nazi flag, he is running for the Republican nomination for governor of the great state of Missouri. And I said I wanted to shout out the Missouri Republican Party here, and I do, because they are now frantically trying to remove him from the ballot. So the neo-Nazi Klan guy can't be their Republican nominee for governor. Once they announced that they were trying to get him off the ballot, he responded this weekend saying, quote, "The GOP knew exactly who I am." Republicans in Missouri, including the Missouri Secretary of State, are trying to get him off the ballot now fast, while also trying to explain away what appear to be themselves like taking pictures with that guy. While he says, you knew exactly who I was. You want one from Georgia? In Georgia, Republicans there are on the cusp of approving a new license plate, a new official license plate for the state of Georgia. And this one comes with a little history. In 1944, right, this is the apex of the Allies' final push to defeat the Nazis and win World War II. When FDR was running for his 4th term in office, the Republicans ran Thomas Dewey against him in the 1944 election. There was also a third party in the mix in 1944. They ran a preacher for president in 1944 who called himself a Christian nationalist. He ran on a platform that said that all American Jews should be forcibly sterilized and then deported from the United States. That party was called the America First Party. Around the same time, there was also an organization called America First Incorporated, America First Inc. The leader of that group received a patent for a club that he said was specifically designed to murder Jews in America. He patented it in men's and ladies' sizes. He called it the Kike Killer, forgive me. He ran an organization called America First Inc. Both those organizations, the America First Party and America First Inc., in the 1940s were trying to capitalize on the notoriety and the name recognition of the America First Committee, which had at one point been very popular in the United States, but it started to wobble a little bit after its chief spokesman in 1941, Charles Lindbergh, gave a big speech in Iowa saying the only reason we were going to end up fighting in World War II is because the Jews were going to make us do it. The America First Committee and the America First Party and America First Inc. Georgia Republicans are about to approve a new taxpayer-supported official state Georgia license plate that says America First on it. The Republican Party is kind of amazing right now. No matter where you look, no matter what state you look, contraception, if you're trying not to have a baby, that's over. IVF, if you're trying to have a baby, that's over too. The Holocaust denier should be the Republican nominee for governor. The sterilize the Jews and deport them movement should be memorialized on official state Georgia license plates. We want really, really, really small government that's nevertheless big enough to make an Oklahoma state registry of every woman who's ever had an abortion, and we'll tell you later what we're going to do with it. Slaves had it great, actually. Slavery wasn't so bad. Let Florida Republicans tell you about it. Tetanus and measles, honestly, they're kind of cute when it's for babies. And did I mention that on Friday, the leader of the Republican Party, the next Republican presidential nominee, is going to host at his home the authoritarian dictator of Hungary? Because dictators are kind of a thing for those guys right now, like polio is. We're back. I mean, the Republican Party is going through some things right now. Right up to the top, and in every state in the country.